Hi everyone, I'm Sarah from cats.com, where we're all about cats. And in today's video, I'm going to be testing out and reviewing 8 different brands of non-tracking litter that all claim to help you solve that problem of finding cat litter all over your floor after your cat has used the litter box. I am very excited for this because I definitely have this problem in my house. So let's get started. For each of these litters, I tried them out with Gordon for a minimum of 1 week, just so we could really get a sense of how is the odor control, how is the tracking, how do these litters actually perform in practice. So for each litter, I'm gonna walk through, I'm gonna go in chronological order and not only talk about the price, the materials, some of that type of stuff, but I'm also going to be ranking each of the litters for both odor control and tracking from a scale of 1 to 5. 5 being the absolute best and 3 being average. A rating of 3 doesn't necessarily mean the litter is terrible or bad or anything like that. It just means it's basically average compared to other litters I've tried and, generally what I would expect. The first litter I tried was this Fresh Up cat litter. This is a clay-based cat litter, and if you're unsure about which type of material of cat litter to choose, we have another video coming out soon of the ultimate guide to cat litter, which may help you. But just for some highlights, according to Dr. Chris Vanderhoof, who's a cats.com veterinarian, he recommends clay-based cat litter because he says that it's most representative of a cat's natural environment, or what the natural environment would be if the cat was out in the wild. So a lot of cats prefer to use clay-based cat litter. Also, from some of our research from the cats.com team, we also see that clay litter is the most popular type of litter, at least what's sold on Chewy, and this is confirmed with other sources I've seen. So if you're looking for something that will be widely available, a clay-based litter could be the way to go. And a quick preview of my thoughts on this one. This was my #1 favorite litter in terms of odor control. Let's jump to my experience. At this point, I've been using the Fresh Up Clean Paws for about a week with Gordon, and I have to say this litter is going to be a tough one to beat because I've been really impressed with it so far. As far as the tracking goes, I've been really pretty impressed. Now, it's not perfect. There is still some tracking outside the litter box, but it really doesn't go much further than a foot or 2 outside the litter box, and the volume is pretty minimal. It's definitely much less than I see typically with Gordon's litter, and there's none that's tracking outside in the hallway or anything like that. And I always notice it because this is my bathroom and I will notice if there's litter all over the place. So I've been impressed with that. I would say a 4 out of 5, but I've also really been impressed with the odor control. I have not noticed any odor from this litter box at all in this whole week, and I normally do from Gordon's litter box, so I've been really impressed with that. I would say a 5 out of 5 for odor control. The next litter I tried was this clay-based litter from Tidy Cats, and I think the big takeaway with this litter is the price. It is the lowest price per pound of any of the litters I tried, and they also sell some small pound increments. So this particular bag I only got for about $5. So if you're on a budget, this litter could definitely be a good one to check out. It's now been about a week of me using the Tidy Cats litter from Purina, and as far as tracking goes, I think this litter it's okay. I think it's not terrible as far as tracking. I would give it maybe a 3 out of 5, but I definitely noticed tracking throughout my bathroom. I noticed tracking get probably 3 or 4 feet away to my white bath mat, so it's not completely going to prevent tracking if you get this litter. And then one thing that I will say probably knocked this down from a borderline 4 out of 5 to a 3 out of 5 is the fact that this litter has bright blue litter pieces in it. So because the bright blue is so bright, it makes it really obvious when your cat has tracked litter throughout your apartment or throughout your house because you have bright blue pieces of litter. I think if this was just gray litter, it would not be quite as obvious, and perhaps that was the case with the first one because that was just fully gray, but nonetheless I did notice tracking from this litter a little bit more than the first one. As far as the odor control, I think this one is also not quite as good as the first litter. I would give this one maybe a 4 out of 5 for litter control. It was strong. I did not notice a major odor, but it was a little bit of an odor that I noticed compared to hardly any odor at all for the first litter. And I think the main reason there was less of an odor is because this is a non-clumping litter. And with non-clumping litters, the urine is going to be staying in the litter box. So I think it's really hard to get it completely not to have an odor, but it was pretty good, I would say. The next litter we tried was Feline Pine. I think in terms of the materials, this one is actually made out of wood. This is the only wood-based cat litter that we tried. And this can be a good option if you're looking for a non-clay-based litter because it is lower dust. But let's talk about my experience now. So the odor control, I would say, is actually really pretty good with this litter, especially for a natural non-clumping litter. I think it is surprisingly good at odor control. That being said, the trade-off of Feline Pine when it comes to the odor is, I think the reason it has good odor control is because the scent of the litter itself is super strong. And I think the smell of the litter basically overpowers any other smells that are coming from the litter box. And in particular, it has a very strong wood smell. It basically smells like sawdust. And I felt like my bathroom just has smelled like a Home Depot or a lumber yard or something for the past week. And I think it's like, I don't know. I think not everyone will love that smell. I think some people may think it's fine. Personally, I think it's definitely better than just smelling the straight up litter box smells. So overall, I would say a 4 out of 5 for odor control, but it is a bit of an acquired scent. And then in terms of the tracking, I think it does pretty good as far as tracking, but here's the thing. The individual pieces of litter from Feline Pine are really quite large, and so I think that makes it a little bit harder for it to track all around your floor. That being said, it is a lot more noticeable than other litters when you have those pieces all around your floor, and they can be more painful or uncomfortable if you do end up stepping on one. But I think the overall volume of tracking was overall pretty low, and it didn't go that far out of the litter box. So I would give this a 4 out of 5 for tracking. Next, I tried the really great cat litter from tuft+paw. Tuft+paw is actually sponsoring this video, which is a tofu or soybean-based cat litter. One thing that's unique about this type of cat litter is it's very soft to the touch. So if your cat or your feet are sensitive to like hard or kind of rigid cat litter, this can be a good option for you. Also, this is a flushable cat litter, and again, it is a non-clay based cat litter. So if you're looking to switch away from clay litter for whatever reason, this could be a good option. Now let's talk about my experience with the really great cat litter now that it's been over a week since I've been using this one. So first, for the odor control, this again is a clumping litter, so I think that just by default makes it pretty good for odor control. That being said, I don't think it was quite as good as some of the other ones at just like eliminating the odor altogether. So I would give this one a 4 out of 5 for odor control. When it comes to the tracking, I think it is a little bit above average for tracking, like better than average, I should say. So I would give it a 4 out of 5 for tracking. It's not something where it's like there's no tracking at all, but I did notice that it took about a week to really get the tracking around my bathroom. So I think that's a little bit slower than average. So overall, I think the tracking situation is pretty good. Also, again, this is a gray litter, and I think depending on the colors of your floor, gray litter I find does kind of blend in, at least to my floors, pretty easily. So I didn't notice it as much as some of the other litters that kind of stand out. So that is something to keep in mind just with which litter you choose, is whatever colors your floors are is going to make a difference of how much litter you're going to notice when it is tracking. So just something to think about. Next on the list, I tried Boxiecat. This is another clay-based cat litter, and I'm gonna be honest, this was not really my favorite in any of the criteria that I was looking at. It wasn't the best for tracking, it wasn't the cheapest, it wasn't the best for odor control, but let's look at my experience after 1 week. This litter is such a fine texture and such a lightweight kind of consistency that I'm gonna be honest, the tracking was not good. I would give it like a 2 out of 5 for tracking control. I did notice this litter all over my bathroom. I noticed it in the hallway. Like this litter ended up like all over the place. That being said, I actually did like this litter despite of that. Because this litter is such a fine consistency, I found this really easy to scoop. Also, because the individual pieces were so small, I wasn't terribly bothered by the tracking because it's not like it was a giant piece of litter that would hurt my foot if I accidentally stepped on it. And it was also so fine that I think it's going to be pretty easy to scoop up in the vacuum. I did try to refrain from vacuuming for the past week, just so I could really see the full extent of the tracking, but I think this is also going to be really easy to vacuum up in the vacuum cleaner. Also, in terms of the odor control, I found this litter also pretty good for odor control. I don't think it was amazing. I did find that this litter took a little bit of some time to like kick in when it came to the odor control. Right after Gordon used the litter box, I don't think it did much at all for the odor control. It kind of took a while for it to really like mask the odor, I feel like. I think part of the reason for that is there's really not much scent to this at all, so you don't get any of those like strong fragrance or strong smell of the actual litter, which will cover it up more. After that, I tried Dr. Elsey's litter. This one is another clay litter, and what I did like about it is it's the second most affordable one I tried on a price per pound basis. So if you're again on a budget and looking for a lower cost option, this could be a good one to consider. This one I've actually liked for a few different reasons. So I think the odor control on this one is really pretty good. I would give it like a 4.5 out of 5 for odor control. I feel like there were a few times where maybe I noticed a little bit of an odor, but I think especially for an unscented cat litter, this one did a pretty good job at controlling any sort of odor coming from my litter box. However, when it came to the tracking, I think it was probably like a 3 out of 5 for tracking. Again, this is another one that is very finely grained, and that is just naturally going to predispose it to being more easily tracked because it's more lightweight. And I did notice a fair amount of tracking right outside the litter box. That being said, it did not really travel that far, so I did not notice like a bunch of tracking all over my hallway or anything like that like I did with the last litter. So I think because of that, I think it's decent for the tracking. Also, another thing to keep in mind is because this is so finely grained and like the pieces are so small, it was not like a painful litter. Like some litters, when they're on your floor, it is painful if you accidentally step on one because the pieces are so big, but this was so fine that I didn't really notice it that much. So I think if that's something that's important to you, then that could be a reason to choose this litter. I also thought it was really easy to scoop because again, it was so finely ground. So I had no problems just scooping everything out with my normal pooper scooper, and it just sifted through very easily. The only thing that I noticed about this one that I thought was not that great is the clumps that it formed with the cat urine were really pretty large, and I don't think I got a ton of good footage of that, but there were some like really hefty scoops there, and I think this just sort of like spread out a little bit more than other litters, and so because of that, I felt like I was kind of running through it faster than I would other litters. But honestly, it wasn't a huge deal because I think that does help control the odor a little bit more. So pros and cons, but overall, I would say this one was a pretty good option. Next up, I tried this Catit lavender cat litter. This one is a pea husk based cat litter, and it is a little bit more on the expensive side at $1.69 per pound, but it was the most eye-catching. So if you want something that will stop people and make them look twice at your litter box, this one could be a good one to consider. Time to check in on the Catit lavender litter. So not only is this litter one of my favorite colors, but it also performed pretty well when it came to tracking. So I would give this one a 4 out of 5 for tracking. The volume of tracking was pretty low, and it also did not travel very far. None of the litter made it all the way to my bathroom rug. It probably made it really just like 6 to 12 inches or so. There was only 1 or 2 individual pieces that made it into the hallway, but not high volume at all. It was also pretty soft to the feet, so if I accidentally stepped on a few pieces of the litter, it wasn't painful or anything like that, like some of the previous litters that I've tried, so I appreciated that. In terms of the odor control, I would say it was average at odor control. I would probably give it a 3 out of 5. Nothing exceptional. I did sometimes notice a little bit of a litter box odor, but it did control it a bit, partially with the lavender scent, although the lavender scent was pretty subtle, so I think maybe that was just a little bit of a concealment of a litter box smell, but I did notice a little bit of smell coming from a litter box, but nothing too bad. I think it did a reasonable job at controlling the odor. Finally, I tried the Catit Poo Club Silica litter. So I will just tell you a little bit more about Catit Poo Club because it's a bit unique compared to the other brands I tried. So basically how this company works is they actually give you a disposable cat litter box with the cat litter. And I do understand it's not exactly an apples to apples comparison with the other cat litters because I am going to be using a different box. However, because this litter box does come standard with the litter, I did think it was a fair comparison just because it's kind of part of the deal, like the litter comes with this box. So I wanted to evaluate it sort of in a holistic way, in the way it's intended to be used. The biggest downside with this litter is it is expensive. It's the highest price per pound of any of the ones I tried. And the whole package deal with the litter and the box is almost $30. So it is one of the more expensive ones that I tried, but let's talk about my experience with it. I've been really impressed with this litter. As far as odor control, I would give it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I barely noticed any odor at all. The only time I did notice a little bit of odor is when I was like actually in the process of scooping the litter box, but other than that, nothing. And then in terms of tracking, it's also been really minimal. I know, of course, it's not exactly a fair comparison with the other litters because this does have a different box, and the tracking was some of the lowest that I've seen of all the litters. At this point, now that it's been 2 weeks, I'm just starting to see some tracking into the hallway, but even now I still don't have any tracking on my bathroom rug, which is kind of crazy because it's been 2 weeks. At the 1 week point, I really noticed just some tracking like right outside the litter box and maybe like 1 or 2 individual pieces that had made it into the hallway, but really hardly anything at all. So I've been really impressed with this litter overall. The only downside with this particular litter is because the individual pieces of litter are so big, it can be a bit painful if you do accidentally step on one because they're kind of like big jagged rocks almost. Like it can be a bit much. So that's the only downside that I've experienced as far as the tracking. That's it for today's video. If you have any other good non-tracking cat litters that you would recommend, let me know down in the comments, and also let me know if you've tried any of these litters. I'd really love to know if my experience is different than any of yours. And that's it for today's video. Of course, we'll link everything down in the description, and until next time, bye.